everyone, my name is Melissa and I am the founder of BlossomWriter.com. I'm coming to you today with this video from my car. I just did some grocery shopping at my favorite grocery store, Trader Joe's, and I have been a busy little bee lately with planning my wedding, which is actually coming up in less than a month, so I'm kind of going crazy right now, but I love my community. So I wanted to hop on here and make a quick video for you guys regarding the blog post that I somehow managed to get up on Tuesday. And that blog post was about receiving compliments, because if you remember from about 2 or 3 weeks ago, I posted a blog post on giving compliments. It was called 2 Reasons to Start Giving More Compliments. If you haven't read that post yet, I'd encourage you to go to BlossomWriter.com and check that post out. It was very well received by this community, and there was a lot of great feedback from all of you lovely people, so I really appreciate that. And that's kind of what inspired me to continue the conversation and talk about receiving compliments. So if you haven't read this week's blog post, it's called The Formula for Receiving Compliments. Go to BlossomWriter.com, check it out. And I think you'll get more out of this video if you do that. But the formula for receiving compliments. So this is where this idea kind of came from. Is I personally feel like it's more difficult to actually receive a compliment sometimes than it is to give them. Like, I love doling out compliments. I love giving compliments to people, but I always feel kind of awkward about receiving compliments, and I kind of wanted to explore this a little bit more. And so I started thinking back over the past couple of years, as I've started to really work on myself and blossom into my best, truest self. What I've kind of noticed is that people who have a high level of emotional maturity are really good at receiving compliments. And what I realized is that I'm not very good at receiving compliments. Usually I do one of kind of 2 things. I either kind of accept the compliment really kind of shyly and awkwardly, or I go to the other extreme of kind of diminishing the compliment and kind of diminishing my own accomplishments that people might be praising. And so I kind of started to look and see, like, oh, okay, so what does this say about me? And what I realized is it actually says something deeper about my self-belief. So we're going to get into that a little bit. But the formula for receiving compliments, I kind of got this idea. I was reading an article on emotional maturity when I was trying to dig up a little more information on that, and it's an article by Tim Elmore, and the article was called The Marks of Maturity. And in this article, Tim Elmore gives 7 signs of an emotionally mature person. And what I realized is that 3 of those signs actually relate directly to giving compliments. Receiving compliments. I'm gonna keep saying giving compliments because that's what the blog post was about 2 weeks ago, and I'm like so used to saying giving. So if I say giving, I probably really mean receiving compliments. But this article, though, I realized that those 3 signs were directly related, and I realized they're kind of the formula for actually receiving compliments. So the 3 different things that I picked up from that article was, one was that people with a high level of emotional maturity are not shaken by flattery. So what I take this to mean is that when you have like a high level of emotional maturity, when you have a strong self-belief, when you really already believe that you're worthy, that you are enough just as you are, people who have that strong sense of self, those people tend to not be shaken or tend to not, have their ego fed by flattery. So, and a lot of times we consider compliments kind of a form of flattery, but if you remember a few weeks ago, we talked about energy versus ego. And really what I think is going on here is that people who have a very strong sense of self, when they receive a compliment, they use that energy to feed further accomplishments, and they use that energy to feed constructive things in their life versus using it to feed their ego. The second thing was humility. And one of the things that Tim Elmore said in this article, which is actually kind of a common phrase. I'm not sure if Tim Elmore was the first person to say it, but I'm sure you might have heard it before. It's that humility is not thinking less of yourself, it's just thinking of yourself less. And so when we're thinking about receiving compliments, what I'm really talking about when we talk about humility is really thinking about the giver and keeping the giver of the compliment in mind when we're receiving the compliment. I know I had mentioned like diminishing compliments. So let's say somebody comes up to you and you're wearing, you know, kind of a dress you've had for a really long time, but they come up to you and they say, "Oh, I love your dress. It looks really great on you." And you're like, "Oh, this old thing." That would be a form of diminishing a compliment. Or let's say you're an event planner and you just planned this event and everything went well, and the people come up to you after and they said, "This was great, you did an amazing job," and you're just kind of like, "Yeah, it's just doing my job." You know, that's a form of diminishing the compliment. But it's not just diminishing the compliment, it's diminishing yourself, it's diminishing your accomplishments, and it's also diminishing the intent of the giver. So again, when we think about humility, we're thinking about keeping the giver in mind. And if we go back to a strong sense of self-belief too, and we go back to that kind of ego versus energy thing, we kind of start to realize that when we accept a compliment with humility, what we're really doing is we're showing gratitude to the giver for giving us the gift of the compliment, instead of assuming that we are entitled to the compliment. So I think what ends up happening for a lot of us, we probably, I don't know about you, but I'm sure I've been guilty of this 1 or 2 times in my life, and I'm sure you've seen plenty of people do this, where someone might receive a compliment and suddenly they act as if they were very deserving of the compliment, like, "Yeah, I'm awesome." And yes, you are awesome. However, the thing with having humility when you receive a compliment from someone is to remember that although you may be deserving, you're not entitled to that compliment, and that compliment was given to you out of the very humility of someone else. So that's another thing to keep in mind. And so then the third element of the formula for receiving compliments is consistent gratitude. So the thing that I'm personally working on is just simply saying thank you to someone when I get a compliment, and not trying to add the fluff or try to explain it away, because that's when I really feel like that I start diminishing the compliment or making it into something that it's not. And so, for example, if we go back to the dress example, you know, if someone comes up to you and they say, "Oh, I love your dress," instead of saying, "Oh, this old thing," just say, "Oh, thank you." Or if you really feel like you need to add on to it, you can add on to it in a much more positive way and say, "Oh, thank you. You know, I got this dress 5 years ago, but it's still one of my favorites. I wear it all the time because it's so comfortable." And that's a great way to say thank you to someone and acknowledge and appreciate their compliment without diminishing or devaluing the compliment. Or if you want to go back to the event planning example that I gave, you know, if you're an event planner and you just planned a great event and it was executed perfectly, and the people come up to you and they tell you that, instead of saying, "Oh, I was just doing my job," the first thing you want to say to them is, "Oh, thank you. Like, that's very kind of you." And then another great, especially if you're a business person or an entrepreneur, this would kind of be a great tip. You can actually kind of sneak your business motto or your business mission into your thank you. So if someone comes up to you and said, you know, "The event was amazing, thank you so much," you can say, "Oh, thank you. You know, our mission here at Elegant Events is to guarantee amazing. And so we're really happy that we were able to do that for you." And that would be another great way, you know, to say thank you without diminishing your accomplishment or diminishing the gift of the compliment that was given to you. So I'd love to hear what you're working on as far as receiving compliments. I know, like I said, maybe you just rock at it and that's awesome if you've already crossed this hurdle in your life, but I know some of us could use a little bit of help. So I hope this video and I hope this blog post was helpful to you. Again, I just want to thank all of you for being awesome and being engaged in this community and commenting below. If you want to say something, feel free to drop a comment below. You know I love hearing from you. And other than that, I will see you next time. Bye-bye.